Hey, YouTube, your LDM here. So I want to talk a little bit about Mythic China. It's something I'm going to be running two one-shots for. Um, I think it's a really interesting time in the world. I think Chinese mythology is really interesting. I don't know much about it yet, but I'm getting into it. Um, so the main thing that drew me to it is I love kung fu movies. Big fan of kung fu movies, and I think there's a lot of room for players to kind of play up the fact that their characters are kung fu masters, not masters necessarily, but even a fighter, for example, in China, at least if you're watching a movie, is good at flying kicks and all that sort of stuff. I think that's really interesting. Um, Also interesting is the philosophies. I think Confucianism is really interesting. I really think Taoism is very interesting. It's something I'm quite into. Um, so that's really interesting to me with looking into. I can see some of the enemies I come up with being quite philosophical, and the challenge being more not about killing it necessarily, but like wrestling with the ideas that it puts forward, which is something I want to try and do more of. I'm currently running a Viking campaign, and that is hack and slash. It's very hack and slash. It's very clear who the bad guys are, who the good guys are, and I want to try and get away from that a little bit. So I'm running two one shots. One is called House of the Falling Blossoms or Flowers, and the story is that there is a house full of what would you call them? Concubines, I guess. No, they belong to a person. Um, Women who are very good at taking care of the needs of men, I guess. It's a bit grim, but in this setting, in my head anyway, this House of Falling Flowers is very powerful politically because these women know all the secrets of the very powerful people. And so they've got a lot of sway in the world, and they're quite an important place. And the house has fallen silent. There's been no response from them, and no one who goes there has come back. So it's come under attack somehow. So it's going to be the players going to see what happened, figuring out what the story is, seeing what the issue is, talking to the people there. It's going to be pretty roleplay heavy in my head. Maybe a puzzle or two. I do like puzzles. And then the other one I have planned is called Corruption at. I'm not going to be able to say it right, but basically it translates to the Temple of Virtue. Um, I think the idea of a food dog or a food lion is really interesting. The kind of celestial guardians who watch over temples, and the idea of those becoming corrupted is also very interesting to me. I really like the Cthulhu mythos, the idea of corruption, and so I think it would be very interesting if you had these creatures that are inherently good, celestial, heavenly, very nice protectors, if they became corrupted somehow, and they turn on the people they were supposed to protect, and then the party goes to see what the hell happened, find the cause, and clear the place and bring it back to purity. I think that's interesting. Um, so yeah, I'm going to be having. I'm not certain about if I'll do dice or not. I probably won't. For these various one shots. Maybe I think the Egyptian one I will do that for, but the rest of them will probably be dice based. I'll certainly try and encourage players to do some crazy running up walls and backflips and fancy combat moves, things like that. I'll also definitely encourage them to what do you call it? Reskin some of their abilities, some of their spells, just to give them more of a kind of a Mythic China flavor. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Mythic China. I think it's a really interesting setting. I'm looking at getting Qin, I think it's called, Warring Kingdoms, I think it's called, or Three Kingdoms. It's supposed to be very good. It's a setting I'm really into. I really like the look of. I'm going to run these games, see how it goes, and if it goes the way I think it's going to go, I'm probably going to invest in that game. All right. Any thoughts or anything? Any ideas you might have for Mythic China setting would be excellent. That's all.